Being a parent is hard enough. I want to talk today about being a teenage parent. I became a mum when I was 19, and what I found with that was a lot of judgment. And so what I want to speak to around today is how judgment really takes away any sense or offering of support. All I can speak to today is my own experience with having a child in my teen years. This is in no way, shape or form meant to take away from anyone else's experience. It is my own, and I would like to share it to give insight and to help others that may be experiencing perhaps a similar thing. Sometimes I find that I forget where I come from. I forget who I was because it was so long ago. So at the age of 19, I had my first child. I was judged immensely by ladies in the supermarket, by the doctors that I saw, by the nurses in the hospital, some family members, friends, by everyone. There was judgment everywhere. And from my 37-year-old self now, that kind of judgment wouldn't land or stick. But when I'm 19, I cared. I cared a lot. I cared a lot about what other people thought. And so it actually disempowered me in a point in time where I really needed love, guidance, support, and a sense of not feeling alone. I felt that the judgment on me really solidified beliefs that I was thinking already of, that I'm broken, I've done something wrong, I've messed up, my whole life is about to change. This is it now. I'll never amount to anything. I had no idea even what to expect at that time. And I think that this stuff is coming through in my life now because my son turns 18 this year. So it feels like as I'm watching him, I'm starting to recognize and reflect a little bit more on myself at that age and how it is so different. I remember fighting so hard to want to make something of myself, to be different, to be understood. I was traumatized, codependent. I had dealt with a lot of loss. I had friends that were going down the route of heavy drugs. I had some friends that had died. So all in all, I thought, I'm still here, I'm still fighting. So there was always a sense of resilience or a strength in me that I had to cultivate. I remember when I told my parents I was already living out of home for quite some time, and I reached out and let them know, and it wasn't received very well. My father actually didn't talk to me between, so although it wasn't in my face, there was a lot of things that really hurt and really shaped that abandonment wound even deeper for me around that time. So in a time where I was way out of my depth, abandoned, alone, scared, I felt shunned, pushed away, and almost like punished. Whether that's what people were trying to do or not, they were probably dealing with it in their own way. But from my experience at that age, that's what I was feeling. I'd had a boyfriend for a few years on and off through high school, and he was in that typical football scene, lots of drinking, gambling, football. When my son was born, I lasted 5 months, and then I decided to get out, and that it wasn't the life for me to be there with all of the responsibility. And if I was going to have all of the responsibility, I may as well go and do it on my own. As you've probably picked up, my attachment style was fearful avoidant. So I wanted closeness with people, but I never knew how to receive or open to that because it wasn't safe. Not only through this time period did I disconnect deeper to myself, to what was going on in my body, I disconnected from a lot of people. As my friends were partying, going to uni, traveling, I was drowning in rent and trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. how I would make ends meet, and then all of a sudden being on my own. So there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear. And at that time, I felt like I dropped into a very deep depression that I hid from everybody really well. I did not feel like a natural born mother at that age. And so there is, sometimes we can have the issues of bonding with ourselves to the process with our child. And it took me months and months and months to feel like I even properly connected. I got myself through TAFE. I changed plans of where I was going. I was living in the city. I was working towards becoming a makeup artist for film and TV. I had a few scary experiences in the city, and I only had myself to really fall back on. There were a few people around, like my boyfriend at the time. He lived in a completely different area, and so I would go in sometimes and see my grandma, and she would help me every now and then. So I was in complete survival mode, just surviving. I really, really wanted to make something of myself, and I had to move away from home. I felt I had to move away from home to receive that. I was extremely traumatized at this time. I had lost someone very close to me, and I hadn't let the grief out. I had got really good scores in uni because I applied myself, because that was my ticket out. And then I never went to the auditions. And so I had this self-sabotaging, rebellious streak. I remember at this point in my life having no communication skills in hindsight. I didn't know how to get my needs met. I just knew I had to meet them myself. So I was very independent, very stubborn, very, very avoidant. At a time where I was really low, judged, really scared to what I was even doing, not knowing if I was doing it properly, calling my mum at all hours through the night because I had no one else, and just really needing help. I went for many jobs as well as trying to study through TAFE, and sometimes I wouldn't get the job because I was a single mum. I feel like a lot of avenues I went down, there was judgment through every path. It was a huge fight to survive, and now I had this little being that I had to look after and protect as well. It definitely gave me more strength. And through these hard times in my life where I would pay rent, buy the baby food, sort out whatever I needed to pay for my studies, and then whatever was left was the only money I had for the food for myself. I lived like this for a very, very long time. Now, this might all sound very sad and very challenging, and it was. There was a lot of loneliness in that time of my life. There was a lot of feeling lost, like I had no direction, like it was hopeless. I was a victim. I was primed for the picking. And so during that time, I was turning 20, 21, and I met the man that I would partner with for 9 years and marry. And that was a domestic violent relationship. So as you can see, I had no self-esteem. I thought because I was a single mom, I had baggage. I was young. He wanted me. He put me on a pedestal. I got all the beautiful treatment. I'm going to look after you, all of those things. And then my life just took a dive down. But you can definitely understand how I was primed for the picking. I was already a victim. So why is this, everything I'm telling you now, why am I telling you this? This is my biggest blessing, and I want to explain why. By the age of 23, I had figured out how to work for myself in a way where I earned more money in less time. I became a massage therapist. I found something I was interested in because a lot of people, when I went for job interviews, all the rejection that I had faced and all the failure that I had faced, all the jobs that I couldn't show up for because my baby was sick and no one could help me look after him, I chose to make it work. I had no choice. So from having no choice but to make it work, I began to learn how to work smarter, not harder. And I didn't know that this is what the lessons were I was learning at the time. I never conformed to systems. I was rejected by systems, and so I always found my own feet intuitively, where I was meant to land, how I was meant to land, and I listened to it because that's all I had at one point in time. I was already an outcast, so I never needed to fit in. I got resilient as fuck to rejection and to failure, which I believe all of these are key aspects, key ingredients to thriving. Not taking it personally, not creating a business and attaching to it. Was it easy? No. I learned to transmute the judgment, the people telling me that I'll never make anything, I've ruined my life, into fuel. It fueled my fire to now become someone who works with people in transition, change, struggle, survival mode, broken down nervous systems, and to come out of trauma and into thriving. I hold a space of no judgment, and this is a beautiful gift through the judgment that I have received in my lifetime. To have my voice, to speak up, and to be the voice for a lot of people who don't get to say that this is going on for them right now. So over judgment, I choose support. I choose to be supportive. I choose to be supported. I choose to believe that anything is possible. And from where I've come from, when I reflect on it and remember, everything is possible. Now, if anyone's resonating with this, if anyone's working with teenage parents, if anyone needs a voice, whether it's online, in person, please reach out to me. I really would like to use my voice more to educate people on what I've been through, how to overcome trauma, struggles, how you can completely create your own reality, and coming from that space of so much lack and abuse and sadness and loneliness to a life of support and thriving and making your own way. So I'd really like to speak to this out in the world more, whether it's through podcasts or in person. Reach out to me if this is resonating with you, or if you know any avenues where I can speak to this and help other people that are struggling, especially as a solo parent or as a teenage parent. I would really like to be that voice and to be that support. Or if you're feeling called to work with me, please go to my website, www.jessimoss.com. You can reach out to me through email or book a session.